Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. We want to welcome and thank you guys for joining today's webinar, Conducting Video Research for a Mobile First World. In today's presentation, I'll introduce and welcome our hosts. We have Jen Galamba, Senior Manager Research and Insights, Brandon Lee, Product Manager, and Alana Ledoux, Solutions Consultant. So our agenda for today will include the state of qualitative research, the marriage between tradition and technology, and the future of qualitative insights. So my name is Lisa Lopez. I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Fuel Cycle, and I'm so excited to have you with us all today. Before we start, I have a few housekeeping items. We will have a Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. So if you have any questions at any time throughout today's presentation, feel free to submit them to either the question or chat box inside the GoToWebinar interface. We will catalog them throughout the presentation and come back to them at the end of the presentation. Also, I wanted to mention, if you haven't joined us before, we have a substantial catalog of case studies, white papers, webinars, and industry resources located at fuelcycle.com under the resources section, which I encourage you to take a look at when you have the time. Today's webinar should take about 30 to 35 minutes, and then we'll go into a Q&A session, which usually lasts about 10 minutes. So with that, I'd like to introduce our presenters. We have Jen Galamba, who is a Senior Research Manager at Fuel Cycle. Her background is primarily in market research methodology and execution. She was in academic research at the University of Chicago and the director of a startup foundation. Most recently, she was a social scientist at Civic Analytics. And then we're going to have Brandon Lee, who's presenting. He is a product manager at Fuel Cycle, working to understand and translate the needs of enterprise market research teams into highly useful and intuitive software. Before becoming a product manager, Brandon was a solutions consultant, matching Fuel Cycle's sophisticated suite of products and features to the needs of customers in order to create highly effective market research solutions. Brandon graduated from UC Santa Barbara with a degree in economics and accounting and technology entrepreneurship, and has experience working with several B2B software companies. And then finally, we will be hearing from Alana, who has an extensive background in technology sales with over 9 years of experience. She received her bachelor's in marketing from the University of South Florida and has been with Fuel Cycle for over 2 years. Alana was originally part of the business development team, helping to bring our clients across CPG, retail, financial services, and healthcare industries. She now works as a solutions consultant within our product team and supports internal teams, clients, and prospects to educate and enable the usage of our market research solution. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jen, who will be going over our first topic.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Lisa. So as we start to think about the state of qualitative research, it helps to first think about what a current project looks like. And the common consensus from a lot of experienced researchers is that qualitative research is traditionally very time-consuming and difficult, with a high cost per respondent, and typically takes several weeks to accomplish. However, with the right technology, there are ways to do this more scalably and more efficiently. So first, thinking about traditional qualitative research, there are high costs at every single phase of the process. First, you have your recruitment costs, then your facility costs, then your moderator costs, and at the end of the whole process, there's a very expensive manual analysis process that leads to your insights. We understand that a lot of our partners, like many of you, are very experienced researchers who are advocating for a place for market research and qualitative research at the table, but a lot of our partners are encountering scalability issues with many traditional qualitative approaches. So as you build your case for qualitative research, it helps to remember that qualitative research excels at identifying the unknowns unknowns. So essentially what you don't know about your business problem or solution. Qualitative research also needs to be a natural complement to quantitative research at different points of the research cycle. So before doing a quantitative study, you can do a qualitative study to inform your hypothesis and different types of decisions you want to make. After a quantitative study, you can use qualitative research to enrich your findings and understand the why behind some of your quantitative data. Qualitative research also lets you dive into topics in a little bit more of an organic way, where you can really probe on different types of topics as they come up and use a little bit more of a flexible approach than with quantitative research. However, there are some major challenges like we've discussed. First, there's time and money. Those are the main primary obstacles. And then at the end of this very time-intensive and very expensive process, you still get unstructured data that is traditionally viewed as unreliable and in some cases entirely unusable. And so, for example, a recent retail client I work with was interested in recruiting for a product testing session in person. And it took about 2 weeks to recruit only and used most of the project's budget to just get people in the room, let alone actually doing actual research. These limitations bring us to ways that we potentially can scale this process, potentially using technology. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to talk a little bit more about how we typically use technology to shape our traditional research process.
Perfect. All right. Hey, everyone. This is Brandon, product manager here at FuelCycle. And in my section of the webinar today, I'll be covering off on the marriage between tradition and technology. And so, FuelCycle is really at the forefront of some exciting changes in terms of how qualitative research is done today. And a lot of it, of course, is driven by the use of technology to augment and enhance traditional methods. So I'll be covering off on the sort of trade-offs that you should be really paying attention to and care about. And we'll talk about the use of technology and how, of course, it can scale what is a traditional time-consuming and costly process. So as we move on to our next slide, we're going to start out with debunking the automation myth of reliability. And so, here at my time at FuelCycle, I've spent a lot of time speaking with different clients and people looking to adopt a research platform. And the question that comes up is the use of machine-driven automation and how a lot of researchers who might be accustomed to traditional methods may have some skepticism. So the statement here, machine-driven automation has a long way to go before it's as good as manual coding, is something I encounter a lot. And I think a lot of researchers are actually pretty surprised when I say that I generally agree. And the reason why is because that the truth is traditional qualitative research that's done in person and maybe time intensive and very costly is something that is never going to go away. And I would argue that it would be many decades before machine-driven automation gets as good as manual coding. And so I can definitely acknowledge that. And it's with the idea that we should really examine the fit for purpose, right? And so when it comes to the use of specific research tools or methodologies, we would want the research question at hand to dictate what tool or method we use and not the other way around. And so ultimately, what we're advocating for is to use machine learning and automation when it's appropriate, and also to recognize that there are certain research questions or objectives that are best handled in a traditional method or through the use of a tool. And so as we take a look at machine learning tools that help us automate things like sentiment analysis, text analysis, and image analysis. These are all things that machine learning algorithms can really excel at. And what we arrive at is the idea that no matter how much money or time or PhDs we hire to essentially achieve a certain amount of certainty in our outcomes, machine learning and automation really helps us get to that point where it's cost effective and that the certainty is good enough. And so perfect certainty is virtually impossible to achieve and very costly. And so let's really think about the trade-offs that we are dealing with when we use machine learning and automation. So for instance, automated text analysis and coding might not be 100% accurate, but let's take a look at how quickly machine learning is allowing us to take a look at overarching themes, right? Rather than have somebody go through a manual pass of the data to identify these themes and code them. Machine learning is doing this in a flash. In a matter of seconds, we get a high-level overview of the most salient themes and keywords. And so this is all done without any human intervention. Of course, the whole point of machine learning and automation is to do this in a cost-effective way and in a short amount of time. And so, we really want to focus on those trade-offs, and the use of technology is helping us sort of augment these traditional processes. Of course, after machine learning identifies different keywords and sentiment, it's up to the human to then essentially review it and to add that human component to really bring accuracy and to really make the data pop, essentially. And so those are the trade-offs that we'd like to consider. So as we move on to our next slide, here we get to this idea of new qualitative research. And so represented with this graph or image here on the right, I want to call new qualitative research, essentially qualitative research that is done with and augmented with automation and machine learning. We're going to call this new qual. And so what this idea of new qual does is really expands the breadth of research and insights that market research professionals such as yourselves are able to get through the use of different tools. And so machine learning and automation is never going to be a perfect substitute for traditional qualitative research. As you can see, it still has a time and place within our image, but with the use of online qual and where machine learning and automation is appropriate, we can really drastically expand the volume and scale at which we're able to conduct this research. And so, we really encourage our clients to really consider these trade-offs and understand traditional qual still has its own use case, but this idea of new qualitative research that's done with the help of automation and machine learning is going to allow you to really scale up the amount of research that you do. All right, moving on to online qualitative research effectiveness. So there are quite a lot of tools out there in the market research world, and there's a lot to consider. And so in terms of some key elements to really consider as your organization thinks about adopting a tool, would be to consider the following. So for one, recruiting the right participants and audience is really important, of course. And so we want a way of ensuring that we're speaking to the right target audience and that we have as much information and data on these respondents before we head into a qualitative research project. We think that mobile optimization is very important. And so with the smartphone being ubiquitous with everyday life, everybody has a very powerful piece of technology in their pocket and it's with them all the time. So with a mobile optimized solution, this really allows people to, it really enables participation wherever the participant may be. So that's really important. Not only for ease of use, but also to enable different use cases. Imagine being able to do an interview while your respondent may be grocery shopping at a store location or at a particular store location to partake in a shop along. This is all enabled only through the use of mobile devices. We believe that online qualitative tools should make sensible and appropriate use of automation. And so machine learning can be applied sensibly and really as long as we have that idea of the trade-offs in mind, we can really adopt tools that enable research to be done in a much quicker and scalable way. And so again, we're not looking at machine learning as the answer to all, but rather something that really helps us move in a more agile way with the data that we're collecting and analyzing. A online qualitative research tool should also make it easy to analyze and share insights. Of course, unstructured data is difficult to analyze, and so whatever can help sort of rapidly bring structure to it and help you get to that analysis component in a much quicker way is something that's going to make for an effective tool. the ease of use can't be stated enough. We want to make the tool easy to use, or you should adopt a tool that's easy to use so that you can really focus on data collection and really facilitate that. And then last but not least, the respondent experience should be continuous and fluid. So it's very sensible in terms of what the respondent is being asked to do, and it's all part of one continuous and comprehensive experience. All right, so the best solution for qualitative research can be mobile video research. And so let's think about the use of technology for something like a one-on-one interview. So, whether this sort of research is done in person or through the use of a video capture solution, let's really think about what is the job to be done, right? So a researcher, of course, is connecting with somebody in person or through video to be able to basically be able to ask specific questions and to really get some in-depth insights in real time in an unstructured format. And so we want to challenge our researchers to think about the benefits and the trade-offs. Sure, when compared to a in-person method, video misses that in-person component, but really at the end of it all, no matter if it's done in person or through video, you're still able to be there to ask those questions. A video feed gives you insight into how somebody may answer a question. It gives you that context and that sentiment and that sort of emotional response. And so this is all something you can capture, whether it's done in person or through video. And so when we adopt a mobile video solution, we're able to get the convenience of cost savings, right? Obviously, this is connecting through like a video IDI tool is something that is a lot cheaper than flying somebody out to a facility to do an interview. Not only that, researchers get the convenience of an instantaneous connection. So with a click of a button, we're able to connect face-to-face through a video solution. And when it comes to engaging the right persona or audience, we can connect with that person or audience when it's appropriate, whether it's through a one-on-one setting or through a focus group discussion. Respondents who choose to opt into video interviews get the convenience of easier and flexible participation. This really lowers the barriers of entry, right? So we're making it a lot easier for respondents to partake if they would like to, and really forgoes that expensive process of using a facility or having somebody fly out to a specific location. And regardless of whether this research is done in person or through video, at the end of the day, qualitative data collection should be easy to collect. We should be able to really easily revisit key moments. We should be able to analyze this video quickly and at scale. And last but not least, all of this insight can't go to waste. And so we should be it should be very easy to share these insights with key stakeholders. And so, of course, with video, all of this is facilitated in a much easier way. And of course, you can do it in the traditional setting, but it's a little bit more disjointed and time-consuming. And so let's think about some of the use cases that this new qualitative research can enable. And in my next slide, I'll be sharing a video of some examples, but let's think about some use cases. So let's combine a mobile smartphone with the video capture technology in order to enable things like video shop-alongs. So this, of course, can allow us to substitute a human component with a mobile video solution so that we can really explore a more cost-effective alternative. And so sure, there's a lot of value in behind a in-person shop-along, and that's, again, not going to go away. But really, what I'm challenging you to think about is the scalability and the volume of research that you can do with a video shop-along. So, of course, with video being more cost-effective, you can do more of these at scale and get more insights as opposed to a single or something that does less volume. Video focus groups. Of course, focus groups are one of the cornerstones of qualitative research, And a lot of the times, these are done through the use of facilities and in person. So rather than go through that expensive, time-consuming process, let's think about the use of video to connect multiple groups of people. And so with video, we enable researchers to reach out to multiple respondents across the nation to engage on a variety of different topics like customer experience journeys, or product development, or the testing of different products at home. We can really engage and bring these people together from different parts of the nation into a single sort of focus group discussion. So a lot of value there. And again, this is done in a more cost-effective way. And we're considering the trade-offs that we are considering with these different, with the use of video. B2B interviews. So thanks to video, this allows us to engage with difficult to reach audiences or people that are particularly busy, especially a B2B audience that you're looking to do research with. And so enabling a video component allows us to encourage and engage in participation whenever it's convenient for these respondents. And then last but not least, we can really dive into key personas and connect with specific individuals for a video-based conversation whenever it's appropriate. So all of this really drives that deeper understanding, but these are all use cases that are enabled with the use of machine learning, automation, and the use of video. So with that being said, we're going to move on to the video example here. And so this is where we'll show you a quick series of focus group discussions and one-on-one interviews, just to paint a picture of how this all looks. So that now.
This is great. I never really get to do an interview outside when I'm out and about.
If there's any obstacles along the way,
Totally.
any sort of promotions that jump out at you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Ralph's definitely doesn't shy away from the the holiday deals. Actually, this is one of my favorite kinds right here. This is the 10 Barrel Brewing cucumber sour beer. I love the discreet design here, but let's take a look at that.
Great choice. I wanted to start off by asking all of you, what kinds of words you would use to describe the jacket. Now that you've had it for a few days, you've tried it on.
It's a very soft jacket. The inside's like fleece-like. Do you agree, Megan?
Yes, for sure. It's so soft, really cozy and comfortable.
I'll definitely say versatile. So it's kind of like, just kind of goes with whatever you ended up putting on for the day and just can kind of throw it on as well.
So if all of you could describe your pharmacy visit in one word, what word would that be and why?
I would say expedited. I got into the pharmacy, got my prescription really quickly, got my questions answered, and was out very fast.
I'd actually say the opposite. I think my pharmacy visit was long, so that would be the word that I would use to describe it.
I'd say mine was confusing. So I went to a new place this time and had a lot of issues like actually trying to find where to pick it up.
Thank you all for that honesty. It's great. So how did your visit today compare to some of your other visits?
Mine was worse than usual. Usually mine was pretty good. I don't know if it's just because it's flu season and so it was very busy and a little bit chaotic.
And so with that, those are some examples of our video IDIs and video focus groups. So I hope that really paints a picture as to how you can do this same type of research but with the use of video and machine learning. And so with that, I'm going to hand things off to Alana for the future of qualitative insights.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon. So this is Alana Ledoux, the solutions consultant here at Fuel Cycle. I'm really excited to sort of discuss the future of qualitative insights and how it sort of ties back to everything that Jen and Brandon said. At the end of the day, we understand the importance of doing qualitative research in general. So finding a way to do this in a more cost and time-effective fashion to where you can sort of tie all of your insights efforts together is really the direction that we're looking to take. So moving right along, really looking into the qualitative efforts, we want to look at this as no longer a standalone solution. We want to focus on both qualitative and quantitative research being a combined effort to help you get to the end result and meet your research objective. Brandon had talked through some of the things like shop-alongs. So when we think about making qualitative research no longer a standalone solution, we can think of running, sort of pre-screening qualitative efforts during a shop-along exercise, such as maybe a discussion, and then possibly running a quant-driven survey. Maybe, kind of digging into some of those findings a bit deeper through more of a moderated focus group in a live chat from text-based, and then having that ability to run an FC Live study to really dig into specifics around how a shopping experience was. I'm highlighting all of this, again, to really hone in on the fact that we see the future of qualitative research being the combination of the qualitative and quantitative efforts that we all know are very important to reaching the overall research objectives in any unified market research ecosystem. So as we're thinking through this, we really want to touch on the point that qualitative research can be just as agile as quantitative research. When we think of doing qualitative research in more of an online-driven setting, you have the ability to vet out your participants, understand your audience, have the ability to run qualitative studies that traditionally could be, as we've mentioned, very costly and time inefficient. So you have the ability to run all of these types of qualitative-driven studies in a much more agile way, which we see as the future of market research. And again, we understand that traditional methodologies will always have a time and a place to be conducted. We want to think of this as having an additional component to address all of your qualitative studies through a new and more forward-thinking fashion. So in conclusion, just kind of thinking through how running qualitative research in a more cost and time effective way can really address bringing back some additional context to your internal stakeholders. Through saving a lot of time and money, you have the ability to run much more qualitative research. And then at the end of the day, we understand that quant-based research is important, but if you can gather more context and contextualize your research objectives through the method of a qualitative study, you have the ability to really get so much more value out of whatever type of research you are conducting. Having that more holistic research point of view gives you much more directional views of your research in total. And then having the ability to really take back something to your internal stakeholders that's outside of just Excel-driven report or a PowerPoint, if you can take back sort of a deliverable where you can see the voice of your customer, or with your B2B audience, maybe some problems they're having and how you can help, or what they think about a new product or service you want to launch. This really adds so much more context and allows your stakeholders to really understand what your deliverables are from any research project that you have launched and fielded, to really get a more impactful end result. So with that, we've kind of concluded the webinar. I'm going to pass it back to Lisa to go over any questions we may have.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Jen, Brandon, and Alana. This was super informative and interesting to hear. I do have a few questions that have come in so far. So the first question comes in from Jordan, who wants to know, for someone who's never used video before, what would be a good project to get started on? And I'll hand this over to Jen to answer.
Absolutely. So in terms of what to use as one of your first projects, I would highly recommend using any sort of exploratory project as your first use case. So it's essentially any project where you are in the very early stages and you want to learn a little bit more about the basics of what your customers are thinking or feeling about your product or service, I would definitely recommend using a video solution, because you can use a very flexible and exploratory approach to really dive into those key research questions.
Okay, awesome. And then I have one last question, and it's come in from Allison, and she wants to know, for qualitative research in itself can actually raise concerns about bias and subjectivity, especially for clients who just aren't as familiar with conducting qual research. Do you think automated solutions help or hurt this problem? And I'll let Brandon take this question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And so I would say that in terms of, you know, the application of like automation and machine learning, you know, let's really think about the speed and scale at which all of the machine learning and automation processes are helping us analyze this qualitative data. And so I want to say that, you know, I think this really depends on, you know, these sort of trade-offs and what we consider, especially when it comes to machine learning and automation, helping to really augment the researcher's analysis process. And, you know, overall, coding helps to reduce bias. It can help, you know, rapidly identify overarching themes and keywords. And then ultimately, it's up to the researcher to go through and add that human touch and component to better understand the data. But let's not forget that, you know, automation and machine learning is helping us, you know, get to the coding in a much quicker way. And then from there, you know, the human component comes in to help, you know, finish and round off the analysis. And so I would say that moving forward, you know, these solutions really, you know, help us address this problem.
All right, so I think that's all the questions we've had so far. If anyone out there is still on the fence about whether to submit their questions, now would be the time. In the meantime, I'll send any questions that do come in later to our team, and they can answer them individually if you do have any follow-up questions. And so I just want to, again, thank Jen, Brandon, and Alana for their time, and we look forward to seeing you guys on future webinars. So thank you so much for joining in.